And now show me your happy faces. You already know that God is in those happy times. But all of the times and all of the other feelings that you can feel, God is always there with you. Remember that you are never alone whatever you're feeling. Thanks for coming up, guys. Now everybody back to your seats. Yep. Part of it is that they owned a grocery store. And I don't know about the rest of you, but back in those days when you didn't have somebody delivering your groceries to you, you had to go to the grocery store to get everything. And because we were the people who were there for you, I remember during the entire week as we were leading up to a Holy Week and to Easter, we would get there at 8 o'clock in the morning to open up the doors, and what would happen is that there was somebody already waiting for us at the door. And then at night, at 9 o'clock, when we were trying to close the doors to be able to go home ourselves, there was always somebody who was saying, wait, I just have to get one thing. And so you would let them in and do that. And then, of course, because you'd had hordes of people coming in and these long lines at all of the registers, at night is when you closed the door so that you could get more to restock all of the shelves. You had to take it out of the storage rooms and bring it up and get ready for the next day. So maybe I'll give my parents a pass for not taking us to all of that sort of stuff. But who knows? In fact, my main memory of Lent at all is eating frozen fish sticks and boxed macaroni and cheese. At the time that I could even begin to read directions and handle the stove, I was the one who was doing that, so we had frozen fish sticks and boxed macaroni and cheese because I could read the directions and make sure that there was something for all of us to eat, my sisters and I, my mom and my dad. But I also have to remember that it wasn't like today. You couldn't go in and get fresh fish at the grocery store or at the meat shop. And if you did have any fish at all, it was going to be either that frozen fish sticks or it was canned salmon, which I found disgusting. It wasn't until that I was in my 40s that I first encountered Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday worship services. And by that time, I had become a Lutheran and I had a child in the 5th grade. That congregation, it was 5th grade when the first communion classes were given, and the ceremony of that first communion always happened on Maundy, Thursday, and every family was required to show up on that day. And so there I was at my first Maundy, Thursday worship services. That means that for most of my life, I knew nothing about the rhythm of Holy Week. I simply went from the parade that goes around the church with your palms in the air to Easter Sunday with all the Alleluias and had no understanding of what was happening in between. Oh, sure, I knew the stories. The stories were always there, but that sense of how you enter into those stories, I had no understanding of that, which these days I think is just too bad. At least for me, the experience of Easter is much richer when I do participate in Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday. And maybe it's because I'm older. Maybe that's why. But I really need my faith to be based in reality these days. It can't be the faith of the little kids, not our confirmation kids. My faith has to be grounded in the way that the earth and the world really is. And I need to acknowledge that, and Holy Week is the one time of the year that I really get to do that. This past week, I was able to think about the places in the world that are filled with pain. And I was able to sit in those places. I could think of Andre and Alana, that couple who lived in, no longer, they're not able to be there, in the Donetsk region of Ukraine. They were going to come here. And the social ministry team was beginning to ramp up to make that happen. We were going to find housing for them. We were going to help them find a way to make their way in this world. And at the last minute, they said, no, we're going to stay. And the thing is that whether they stay or whether they go, they will still be facing difficulties. There's no easy choice for them. There just isn't. There is no miracle that's going to suddenly make their life easier, unless, of course, the war ends. There are those in this world who find it impossible to sing Alleluia because this is the first year when someone that they love won't be at the table. Or perhaps this is one more year filled with emptiness. I think of the blacks in Tennessee who just lost their representation. And the cry goes out once again, "How long, Lord? How long before your justice reigns?" It's during Holy Week and the darker services, the quiet services, that I can acknowledge that everything in the world is not right. The Bible tells us that in the beginning there was nothing but chaos, and that God entered into the chaos and brought order. But we also have stories about how we as human beings continually bring that chaos back into the world and into our lives. Stories that remind us of our own truths. We are the ones who perpetrate violence with our words and our deeds. We are the ones who are held captive by our desires, by our fears, by our regrets. We are the ones who stubbornly hold on to hatred and then judge the people who we hate as being the ones in the wrong. The real value of Holy Week isn't considering, though, where the world is hurting. Quite frankly, the thing that I love the most about those services, it's in looking at myself and how I am the one who's causing pain. I could be honest about the things that really make me frightened, my desires that are holding me captive. I sat in the darkened sanctuary. I acknowledge that there's some dreams that shatter, and the broken shards can pierce my heart. Theologian Anna Madsen reminds us that every single day we can be touched by grief and loneliness, disease, regrets, hurts, injustices, and the absence of delight. Yet most of the time we try really hard not to feel it. We are too afraid to acknowledge that we are. But that's only comes to today. Peter's regret was not the end of his story with Jesus. After the resurrection, he becomes a great evangelist, teaching people about Jesus Christ and the way to follow his path. Thomas's confusion was not the end of his story with Jesus. Jesus appears to him. He goes out to other countries to spread the word about Jesus and starts whole areas and churches over in India. The purpose of looking with honest eyes both at my life and out into the world isn't about assessing blame, but it's rather to see the chaos that I'm bringing into the world. And that is the place exactly, in those places of hurt where the tomb about what keeps happening in our lives. It's about how Jesus keeps showing up unexpectedly. And the world keeps finding new ways to handle the new chaos that we create. Frederick Buechner says that the resurrection means that the worst thing, anticipation and the actions leading to climate change, allows me to appreciate an amazingly gorgeous day like today where the birds are singing and the grass is full and rich, and I can see all sorts of things beginning to bloom. Looking clearly at my role in extending anger and hatred allows me to appreciate even more fully the many wonderful and amazing people all around me who continue to lift me up in spite of who I really am. Looking clearly at the fear which propels so many of my hurtful acts, my misdirected desire, helps me appreciate that even though I make so many mistakes and so many missteps, a couple of months ago in a sermon I said, Jesus isn't dead and neither am I. The joy that I feel on Easter morning with an Easter egg hunt, abundant breakfast, alleluias being sung is found in being grounded in a faith that said, God is with me, God is with you always. God is in the good days filled with joy and laughter. God is in the hard days filled with regret and anger. And as we heard in the second reading, we proclaim the hope that is in us. Because Christ lived, we also live, for we too are God's offsprings through our baptism. And so, ever since I started walking through all the days of Holy Week, I have come to understand more fully all of the vast possibilities for goodness and joy and justice in this world. Because no matter how real I am about what is wrong with the world, the bigger truth is always this: because Jesus Christ lives, we also live. Jesus Christ is risen today. Alleluia.